Hi and welcome, my name is Lawrence Baker and this video is going to be about exporting photographs for the web and social media from Photoshop. So I'm assuming you might be a photographer of some sort if you're listening to this video. I'll be using File, Export As it's Adobe's go-to command for exporting to the web or screens now. Before we go there, let's go to the Preferences, Photoshop Preferences, Technology Previews. Make sure you got Enable Preserve Details 2.0 Upscale on because it's great for upscaling images. But we're going to be doing a lot of downscaling, but I need to point it out to you because you might be upscaling. Cancel on that. Also, File, Export Preferences, and it is the Preferences here. Quick export format for me is JPEG, quality 100, ask where to export each time, metadata none, I'll explain why in a minute, convert to sRGB. Also, you can right click on the thumbnail, go quick export as JPG or export as. Simple as that. So now that's covered, File, Export as. Now it's superseded Save for Web for good reason. It's all about scale all. Now, when Apple came out with the first Retina phone, which means it's got a high pixel density, what Apple would do via the Safari browser, let's say, is double the size of the image so it could be resolvable to your eye. Now, because it's got such a high pixel density, obviously, as the pixel density goes up of a screen, an image of a given pixel dimension will start to get smaller. So as I said, in the short term, they just doubled the size. Now, browsers can do resampling or interpolation or resizing, whatever you like to call it. So they do resize images, not as well as Photoshop. So people were complaining they looked really blurry. But if you downsample, make it smaller with a browser, it's not that bad. So I really only care when we're upsampling. So what was the solution? Well, lots of people started panicking in the web development world and came out with different ways of getting around it. But basically, simply put, it boils down to this. On your phone, you're on Safari, you go to a web server, your browser will report your device pixel ratio, which would be 2 times for an Apple phone at the moment, I think it is. Then the web server knows to deliver images at twice the normal size. How does it know what images it has to use? Well, when I show you one I've exported it earlier, it has at the end of the file name at 2x, for 3 at 3x. So the web server says, all right, I've got a browser that has a device pixel ratio, or the device does, of 2. I need to serve it a 2 times size image, and it means doubling the pixel dimensions. Simple as that. Nothing to do with file size. It will increase the file size. So you're going to have to do a lot of resizing to cope with these different devices. What I will say is there's got to be a point where you stop doing it. If I press down here, you can see I can have from 0.1 to 3 times, go smaller or larger. What the practical ones are now, I think it's 1, 2, and 3. I'm not 100% sure, but you've got to make that decision. Just think like this. As the pixel density of the screen goes up, an image of a given size will get smaller. So when it comes to high pixel density screens, you might need to double or triple whatever the size of the image. That is really what it's all about. And that's why Export As is seen as a better method than using, cancel, File, Export, Save for Web. If you're only putting out one image, it's fine. It has 4 up views. There's the original. There's one at 19. You can see the quality there. 4 quality, one at 9. So you can play around on each one and, look at what's better. I really do like that. But everything else I don't care about. You can see the color table for PNG stuff and play around with GIFs, etc. So this looks more complicated than it actually is. So I don't even use it now. So cancel. I use File, Export As, Alt Option, Shift, Command and Control, W. So that's the one I would use. Let's go through this first. Let's get rid of those. We don't need them at the moment. JPEG quality. The higher the number, the bigger the file size in terms of megabytes. If you're going out to your own website or a client's website, it really matters. So what I would do is put this on 0, and I really don't like this slider. Put it on 0, and this is the reason I do it. Click in the box there and go Shift up arrow, and I would zoom in to about 100 or 200% even, It's 100% now. I can see terrible banding in the sky. I can make this box larger if I want to, by the way. Terrible banding in the sky there. So what I do is click back in and keep shift and up arrow till I see that banding or the quality going up. Around 60 I know is about right. Notice it's gone to 2 or 1.6 there. If I go down to 50, shift and down arrow, let it update, it's 1.2. So I might say, yeah, 50, I might get away with it. So what I might do now is just use the up arrow key. It's really putting the file size up. I've decided 50 is okay. Because if you don't do this, you're going out to your own website and you're a photographer, let's say, Google will slap you down the search engine ratings because your page takes too long to load. The way the web's moving now, it's called the semantic web, and semantic means definition of words in linguistics. What it's saying is it prefers text to images, and it is going that way. So if you're a photographer, you're going into a world that is trying to push you out of the web. So you better make sure your images load quickly. Obviously, you can resize here. I don't resize here. You can change the canvas size here. Let's put 4,000 in for a laugh. It's a bit flaky, you have to excuse me. And if I bring the size down, you'll see that border's been put there. Reset. So the resampling is the interpolation methods. And it's a posh word, interpolation and resample, for how it's going to resize something. If you don't know what you're doing, bicubic automatic is pretty okay, but I am very fussy and I'll show you which ones I pick in the image size dialog box. By the time I've reached here, I've done the sizing. Right, metadata, none. Facebook, Twitter and Instagram strip out your copyright anyway. So all it's offering you is copyright and contact info, not the EXIF data or anything like that about your camera and what focal length you used. Just the IPTC, International Press Telecommunications Council. I'm showing off, but that is the copyright info. You know, if it's not going to stay with the file, why give it to them? Convert to sRGB. If you don't do that, you'll end up with that. Most screens, in fact, I will put my hand on my heart and say all screens support sRGB. Well, the operating system does. S stands for screen, but I almost like to think S stands for safe. Nearly every screen in the world supports it. If you embed the color profile and you wanted it a ProPhoto RGB, let's say you untick that and you wanted to, you know, I presume it's on ProPhoto. What will happen is the web browsers sometimes can read it. Not all of them at the moment. So if you're going out for the web, so to speak, do not do it. It just bloats the file because it won't be read. But if you're handing it off to a graphic designer or someone else, you might need to embed the color profile. They will tell you what they want. So don't do that. Do that and you'll be fine. I need to show you social media. So, Chrome, Facebook. Now, there are a lot of sites out there from people who do marketing or SEO say these are the sizes. I see a lot of errors from even people who are meant to be very good. And one of those is Sprout Social. I do use them. It's a Google sheet, which is on Google Docs. I'll give you a link down below to it. And every time it gets updated, I get an email to say it's been updated. I still use it, even though I disagree with some of their settings or they should be giving more information. But Facebook first. I'm on Facebook, regular photos. I'm not talking about cover photos or anything now. Regular photos, 720, 960 or 2048 pixels wide. As a photographer, I'm going to pick that one without a doubt. Now, Sprout Social say on Facebook, shared image timeline, 1200 by 630. Now, that might be the ideal dimensions because it probably gets cropped in the timeline view. When you click on the image, I want it at its fullest size, 2048, and that will fill most screens. It's pretty good. So that's why I do it. Now, that's recommended. Why didn't they give a minimum or a maximum, which is 2048 on the longest edge? And they've got an image scale of 1.91 to 1. I've just seen there, 2048, doesn't mention anything else. Obviously JPEG with sRGB, but you can even upload a TIFF, and I'll prove that to you in a minute. If I wanted to find out the image size in megabytes, guess what? It's 15 megabytes. I found it eventually. I think it would be easier to find out Mark Zuckerberg's inside leg measurement than to find out the size that you want. It's unbelievable. So 15 megabytes and 2048, you won't go anywhere near that with a JPEG. So you've got a lot of headroom. Bear in mind, they will resize, they will compress your image. You might export at 100, which I'm going to do. They will compress it when they bring it in and also resize it on the fly all the time. So just be aware of that, but I'm going to stick to 2048 because I believe it works. And I know it works because I do upload to Facebook now using that. Notice that TIFF there, you can either upload a TIFF and it will convert it into a JPEG. Don't recommend it because Photoshop's better at that. But I have done it for a laugh and no more. Right, so now we know 2048 and 15 megabytes. Let's go back to Photoshop. Now let me explain how I do things. I resize first with image size, then I sharpen, then I go to export as simple as that. So let's do that process. Image size, Alter option, Command and Control, I or image size. You can make this bigger and make it fill up the whole screen. Quickly, it's 58.7 megabytes here, 4272 by 2403 pixels. It's on 300. I'm panicking, but I'm not panicking. It should be 72 ppi. It doesn't matter because when you use the export as, it will put the 72 ppi in there. But it doesn't matter because it's just a bit of metadata to a screen. It will put it in the file, but it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters to a screen or a printer that matter is the size of the image. So for a bit of fun, I'm going to untip resample. When you do that, you can't have pixels here and you can't change that from pixels. I'm going to put it at 1, tick resample so I can have pixels back. You can also change it up there as well if you want. There you go. It's a 1 ppi image if I export it, but the size hasn't changed at all. It will not change. It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. So one more time, untip resample. Notice the 584272. I'll keep it like that. 300. Tick resample. Put it back to pixels. It's still the same size. Doesn't make any difference. So I will go back to 1 just to be awkward. 1, resample, back to pixels. Size. When I talk about size in this context, I mean pixel dimensions. I think I confuse people sometimes in a previous video by saying image size when I should have said pixel dimensions, because I try and keep image size for the size in megabytes or kilobytes, whatever. But for size here in this context, it's definitely pixel dimensions. So I want a 2048 image. 2048. It's going to be 1152 at 1 ppi. Interpolation, posh word for resample, and that's a posh word for resize. How it's going to resize the image, it's going to make it smaller. For me, I always use bicubic smooth gradients. If you're on automatic, it will use bicubic sharper. Making the image smaller can often increase the contrast slightly, and then sharpening it can introduce halos. I prefer to do my own sharpening, bicubic smooth gradients. Going up, automatic will pick preserve details enlargement. It's far better off with preserve details too. Bicubic smoother. So I should have duplicated the image as well and work on a separate image because this is destructive. Okay, right. Command 1 for 100% magnification. So because of the PPI of my screen, roughly is around 170 at the moment. What's happening is the image looks a bit like a postage stamp, 100% view. With a low PPI, it will look bigger. So size is everything. That's it. Size only matters to a screen. So what do I want to do? I want to sharpen it. Now I could zoom in more here, but I'm going to go filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. I'm going to use that square to click on that roof there because it's a good place to look in. Now, sometimes I actually zoom the image in far more than this and play around, but I'm going to do it all in here. Now, it's got an amount of 50, a radius of 0.6 and a reduced noise of 3. Lens blur, yes, at all times, unless you've got something moving in the image. Gaussian blur is like unsharp mask. Lens blur is far better. So I've got a slight halo there, so I've got to be aware of that. I don't want huge halos. You want some because that's what makes it appear sharper. Amount, it adjusts the strength of the sharpening applied, but it goes up to, look, 500. So it's a bit confusing. I look at it this way. The radius is the amount of luminance around the pixel, so it's a big trade-off all the time. So I know for an image around this size, around 100% is pretty much fine. So I can see a slight halo coming there. I'm going to move the radius up to about 1.1. And I can see it. I might even go a bit higher. Click down. That's before. That's after. I think it's improved it. I'm going to stay with that. It's only going to Facebook. So I've sized it. I've sharpened it. Export as. and it's got a keyboard shortcut. The way I do it is Command and Control, Alt or Option, Shift W. Export as. The size is already there. JPEG at 100% because the file's 2 megabytes, way below the 15 megabytes that Facebook recommends as the maximum. So all this here means nothing. You're not resampling here. I always try and be on 100% view here in case I have to crush it down. If it was my own website, I would definitely crush it down without a doubt. No metadata. They won't put the copyright or keep it in the file. Convert to sRGB. Don't embed, obviously. We talked about that. Export. Put it on my desktop somewhere. The file's out there now, and I would just upload it to Facebook. F12, which was file revert. What I should have done is this. I should have basically gone to image, duplicate, and I'm going to use Twitter now, for Twitter. Okay, so I've got my duplicate file here on the tab there. What we're going to do now is go to Twitter's website and look to see what they say. Basically, all they say is 15 megabytes maximum on the web, 5 megabytes on a phone. They accept GIF, JPEG and PNG. We only care about JPEG. Finding a size here, almost impossible. I've done my best, can't find it. Sprout Social, there are lots of others out there. They do make a few mistakes. As I said, they're marketing people. Twitter, they say in-stream photo, recommended 506.253. Minimum 440/220. Maximum, which I'm going to go for, 1020 by 512. They say 5 megabytes for photos. I know it's 15. They say 3 megabytes for GIFs. But I trust them on this size here. As you can't find it anywhere else, I don't know where they got the information from. They certainly didn't get it from Twitter. Well, I can't see it anywhere. So 1024 by 512. So what I would do now, I would crop this image with the crop tool at a ratio of 1024 by 512, which happens to be 2:1. 1024 tab 512. So it is 2:1, but you can just put the actual figures in. 1024 by 512. I'm not going to play around with the crop. Accept it. Image size, Command and Control, Alt or Option I. 1024, 512 automatically. Resolution of 300, doesn't matter. I'm going down in size by cubic smooth gradients. Okay, really small. Command 1, actual size, really, really small. On my screen, don't forget that's really important. Filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. And I know I'm going to have to make it, smaller. Well, make the amount smaller because it's a smaller image. I need to zoom in right onto that rooftop there. Let's click on it there. Boathouse, I should say. I'm going to bring the amount to about 70, bring the radius down to about 0.6 and reduce the noise a little bit. There's always a little bit of noise because I've played around the image sized it, etc. So always on lens blur. I'm going to go with that. Now, Command and Control, Alt or Option, Shift W for export as. 1024, all that's fine. Don't touch it. That's fine. Export all. Out you go. Then upload it to Twitter. The hard one now, I'm going to Command W on that to lose that. Don't save. The hard one is Instagram because it's very strict about its sizing. So Instagram here, what it basically says without reading the whole lot, you can have 320 or 1080. Ideally 1080 by 1080. It's all based on a portrait view of a phone basically, but you can have a ratio if you've got 1080 there on the longest edge between 1.91 to 1 and 4 to 5. So it's basically 2:1 to 4 to 5. So you can go between those two measurements, but it helps you out here. If you want 1080 on your longest edge on a landscape image, you can have a height with those crop settings between 566 and 1350. The best one is 566. 1080, 566. Please remember that because I'll probably forget it in a minute. Image, duplicate, 1080, 566, Instagram. 1080 by 566. Crop tool, 1080, which is ratio only by 566 because you can pick to change the width, height and resolution. 1080, 566. I like the crop. We haven't got time to play around. Never tick delete crop pixels ever because you can always go back to your crop. Tick it. Image size, Command and Control, Alt Option, I, 1080, automatically 566, going down, always by cubic smooth gradients for me. You might get away with sharper reduction on this one, but I like to use my own interpolation methods. It's really small, Command 1 on my screen, because I got a 5K Mac, and I even dropped the resolution for this video. So it's like a postage stamp, but I'm still going to try and sharpen it. Filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. You can use unsharp marks, of course. Much slower. Well, maybe not. Let's zoom in. I'll go to that bit there, click in, and then zoom in on that roof of the boathouse. Maybe a bit more, 500 on this occasion. Click down with the hand. I've got a bit of sharpening going on there. I might bring it up, and I might bring it up there a little bit. Or maybe I'm pushing it really a lot here. I think that's over sharpened. Let's bring the radius down. It's a very small image, 0.6. Before, after, it's done a pretty good job. Reduce noise, I leave it on about 4, that'll do. Obviously, the more you reduce the noise, the more you take away from the sharpening. So lens blur, always, unless you've got a moving object. Okay, now, Command and Control, Alt Option, Shift W for export as. 1080, 566, export it out, try and get it to Instagram. When I say try and get it to Instagram, really works on phones. Now, you can do it from the web. Now, you do something called browser spoofing, and I will quickly show it to you, because what a lot of photographers are moaned about with Instagram, and if I go to Instagram now to my own account, what a lot of photographers are moaned about is that if they go from the desktop or a plugin in Lightroom, whatever, and they've got a keyword, when they search on that keyword, their image doesn't come up. And they believe, I'm not saying this is true, that Instagram are trying to punish photographers who use this method, because the ethos of the site is meant to be spontaneous with, young people putting filters on, etc., etc. So what you can do is spoofing. Alt Option, Command and Control, I on your browser, and it brings up something here, and you can go Galaxy S5, for instance, then go Command R, then you can upload a photograph from here, and it thinks it's coming from a phone. Now, this is called browser spoofing. So, it shouldn't be allowed really, but you can do it this way and find your image. It isn't illegal. If you want to get away with the fact that they think you've done it from a desktop, do it this way. So hopefully you got all this. I mean, basically my route for, let's say I was going out to my webpage, is crush that JPEG down. If I need scaled versions for high pixel density screens, I can do that. For Facebook, 2048, size it, sharpen it, export as, and you can have a 15 megabyte file, so 100% quality. Same for Twitter, basically. If you go back to Twitter here, I'm going to stick with Sprout Social's 1024 512 2:1 aspect ratio. 5 megabytes, well, it's 15, we know that. And I'm sticking with their sizes. Search around, you'll get sites saying different things. I believe that Sprout Social got this one right, actually, but they haven't got the size right there. Instagram, as I pointed out, is much more aggressive in what it wants. If you don't crop it properly, it will do its own cropping. Don't forget, with all these social media sites, except for Flickr and maybe 500px, and I do class Flickr as a social media site, by the way, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, they're going to aggressively compress your image and resize it all the time on the fly. Every browser is called a user agent, and every user agent reports its settings. So then the web server knows what to give the browser. That's it, guys. Thanks very much. I hope you got something from this. Not an easy subject. Take my word for it. PPI doesn't matter to a screen. Thank you.